Hello guys, this is a very special Daily OCF. Changing gears a little bit with this episode. This episode is going to be all about O'Hare CrossFit's training, programming philosophy, how we come up with the workouts, what we do, what our focus are, and what our program offerings currently are, and what we're trying to do with each of our athletes that come into the gym. So you can see there's a lot of stuff here. I'm going to try to not keep you bored through it. I'm going to kind of move as best as I can and help you guys stay entertained with it. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of this stuff. You can email me for further depth if that's what's necessary. Part one, our assessment. Every athlete that comes to O'Hare CrossFit during their fundamentals or foundations process, we put them through an assessment. We actually do two assessments. The first is a FMS, which stands for Functional Movement Screen. This is extremely popular in the fitness world, not so much in CrossFit, but definitely in any other strength and conditioning protocols, as well as in the chiropractic and physical therapy realm. It is just a basic screenshot, 7 tests to see where somebody is in a bunch of different parts of their body. The next thing that we do is I've adopted this. This is the Y balance. It's a left to right. We only do the lower quadrant. It's a left to right test of balance and also how well your balance is left to right. I feel like a lot of athletes come to us and they have a lot of imbalances in their lower half, which when they're deadlifting or doing any kind of movement, squatting, if one leg is engaging more than the other, that could definitely cause a lot of issues. Very rarely have I seen anybody that comes to the gym and has back pain in their entire back. It's usually due to one side. So trying to figure out as early as we can where people are as athletes, where they might have issues, and also any kind of left to right imbalances. One, not only helps us as a staff while we're coaching you, make proper scaling adjustments, but I look at these assessments every month to month to plan new cycles and see where our gym and our athletes that may be coming in through the next group of foundations may be lacking, if it's a single arm, if it's a single leg, if they're lacking some upper back extension, things of that nature, just to keep everybody on track of what we think that they need, which is a healthy life. So moving forward, a couple things that we focus on here. I think a lot of gyms may not understand this completely, and I hope this is going to be helpful for them. There's mobility, there's activation, and then there's motor control, okay? And also you could place stability in a part of this discussion as well. But when you're stretching people, like mobility, which I would deem as stretching or active passive stretching like that, once you open somebody up in a new area, like they have a new range of motion, you need to activate their body in that range of motion. So let's say I could, I get a little more length in my hamstring, then I look to activate my glutes. Once my glutes are activated, I have to do some motor control exercises, maybe similar to a goblet squat perhaps, to kind of really get my body to understand this movement pattern. And it's not about just doing one or the other. We like to try to blend all three, and we've seen a lot of good success with a lot of athletes, just because we want them strong in these new patterns that we're helping them get to. Next, our programming is really goal-based. I know that CrossFit has a wonderful methodology, but one of the things that I enjoy most about it as a coach and programmer is that you could take CrossFit's principles and you could adapt it in any way that you kind of want. And that's what makes CrossFit really unique, because everybody has a different flavor of what they think CrossFit is. For me, I look at first discussing and having discussions with every athlete that comes in here about their goals. What are they trying to accomplish here? What do they really want? And trying to better understand what I could do to provide my version of CrossFit, or a version of CrossFit, for them to reach those goals. Not us trying to take what CrossFit may look like in a games or a regional scenario as a sport and trying to put it on other people in that way. So for us, finding out what our members really want, or our potential clients really want, and gearing our programming towards them is essential for our success. Next thing that we look at is training age versus biological age. So people have a biological age. I'm 32 years old, blah, blah, blah. Now, training age is how long you've been doing strength and conditioning for, or training your body as far as pushing it and things of like that nature. I think this is really important to understand, because many athletes come to us with a certain biological age, but not many people truly understand how training age plays a big part in this. If somebody's a little bit older and has not done any kind of strength and conditioning activity or anything like that, most likely you're going to see a lot of restrictions with them, how they move and how they function with these patterns, because they're so new to them. And understanding this is how you really pick how you're going to train somebody. Next thing I want to talk about, this is a general discussion amongst CrossFit gym owners, CrossFit gym coaches, and CrossFit athletes. My view on kipping is this. I think that you need to have the strict version of whatever you want to kip first, and then you're allowed to kip. One thing that I think a lot of athletes forget to look at, and my first example is going to be the kipping pull-up, is let's just say I'm about to do this pull-up and I get to the top of the pull-up and all that for my kip. The downward motion, the motion of me coming down off the pull-up bar, is where kipping in my mind becomes dangerous. This is where labrum tears, a lot of shoulder issues happen, because the downward force from that kipping motion, you know, you could argue how much it's going to be. It's usually, in my history and my kind of seeing, they're doing some studies about this now. They've given it about a 1.5 to 2 times body weight force. So unless somebody has the structural strength, which we would deem the strict version would be a version of expressing that strength, to handle 1.5 to 2 times their body weight, they're really not allowed to kip in our facilities. So for me, I'm a 200-pound athlete, let's just say, if I maybe lost a few pounds, but let's just, for example, a 200-pound athlete. So when I'm coming down off a pull-up bar from a kip into my next pull-up, you're gauging anywhere between 350 to 400 pounds of force in that downward motion, and that is going to be here, and put on my labrum and put on my lats and my upper body, and if my body's not ready to take that, you're talking injuries and a lot of boo-boo. Same thing with kipping, handstand push-ups. So I'm a big fan of strict first. All of our facilities, you need to display some sort of strict baseline depending on what the movement is to move into that kipping standard. The next thing, Olympic weightlifting. I am a huge fan of weightlifting. I think it's a lot of fun and it's definitely very cool, but I don't think it's, in general population standards, very important for them to be fit. I don't think one equals another. So to somebody tell me that somebody needs to be healthy, in order for them to be healthy they need to snatch or clean and jerk, I would argue with that in that sense. So for me, some of our programming really gets based on what we hear as goals for a lot of our athletes. And I'll tell you what, I haven't seen many people come in the gym and the first thing they tell me is, Angelo, I want a double body weight snatch or 1.5 body weight snatch. It's usually, Angelo, I have lifestyle issues, I need to make some new habits, I need to learn about nutrition, I definitely need to lose some weight, or some people need to get stronger, but that's not mutually exclusive with weightlifting. So that's just my views on it. We do add weightlifting into the programming, which I'll get into once we get into the performance group, but in our baseline programming you will not see weightlifting. You will see some sort of explosive movement, jumping, medicine ball throwing, things that we deem a lot safer and a lot easier for a lower barrier of entry for somebody that hasn't had experience with them. Next thing that we do a lot of here with the training, and I'm a really big fan of these, is carries, crawling, and odd object and imbalance work. One of the things that CrossFit was known for and is known for is training you for your everyday life, right? And I think a lot of us have gotten dependent on the barbell, but in reality, everyday life means picking up the groceries and keeping a hand free for the keys, or picking up something and holding it here and walking with it, and that, moving when I'm gardening and holding a sack or something of that nature. So I throw a lot of that different kind of training in there for everybody, sometimes with weights on one side versus the other, overhead, and then holding a farmer carry. I think this is a really big essential part for core stability and getting people to really engage from here first and then move their bodies in that way. One thing that I'm a big fan of, I've been exploring a little bit of MoveNet. I don't know if you would say that I'm really good at it, but I do enjoy doing it. So the crawling patterns, I'm a huge fan of. I think this is an incredible way to get people to engage their bodies from the core out. Many people we see go limb first, and that's just incorrect movement, which most people might have known, but it also resets them and gets them firing from here first, keeping this together while they're moving, so their trunk is together first. So crawling is a big part of our programming as well. In our warm-ups, in our conditioning, everything like that. And we don't crawl fast in the conditioning, but it definitely makes a big difference when you're doing it nice and controlled. If you see here, I have horizontal pulling with a smiley face. CrossFit, we go overhead very much. There's a lot of vertical pulling in CrossFit competitions, and there's a lot of vertical pushing. There is no horizontal movement per se in CrossFit competitions as far as pulling. You can't see any kind of rowing and stuff like that. I've seen an incredible amount of benefit from adding horizontal pulling, rowing, ring rows, single arm dumbbell rows, chest supported rows, and all of my athletes programming from beginning level and all into the competitors. I think it's essential. So we do a lot of horizontal pulling as much as we could get into with a lot of our athletes. One of the biggest reasons, guys, is a lot of athletes come to us with anterior posture, anterior tilt posture. So they have forward posture here. The other surefire sign is your neck up like this. We live in a society where people spend a lot of time sitting on a phone, texting and stuff like that. So my job as a coach is kind of fade this from happening, and the best way to do that is to start working some of those posterior muscles and getting the shoulders back into the proper positions. So next thing, we break down our programming into 3 different groups per se. 2 groups are in classes. The competition group, which is sport, is kind of an individual program. So I just want to talk a little bit about that. So the first one is the fitness group. So this is basically your baseline of strength and conditioning principles. This is where you really learn how to deadlift, squat, press. All these things kind of get built onto you. A lot of athletes come to us with a bodybuilding background, but not so much a pure strength and conditioning background. So we try to hit them with that. To be in this group, or everybody starts in this group, but to stay in this group, you need a 14 or less on your FMS score. It's just a baseline for us that we deem that is safe. 14 on the FMS with no zeros means that you're pretty much ready to go overhead and do things of that nature. We do a lot of single arm and single leg movements in here. A lot of athletes come to us with a mix of having a lot of imbalances, strong arms, strong legs, things like that. So a lot of the strength work in this group is done single leg. Next is core stability. I hate to use that word core, it's so cliche, but getting people to really engage their whole trunk from all the way around. Dead bugs, bird dogs, a lot of things that are found in the PT world. Getting people just really strong here. I think people can't be strong enough and have enough understanding of how to stabilize this and move, not hold their breath. So we put a lot of emphasis on that. Focus on the glutes, recruitment and activation. So many athletes come to us sort of like this anterior posture epidemic with really lack of engagement in the glutes, which causes a lot of lower back issues, which causes being anterior dominant, anterior side or front side dominant in their bodies. And for CrossFit and also for strength and conditioning, and I would even deem it for life, you need to be balanced. And if I had to pick one, I would rather be posterior chain dominant versus anterior chain dominant, just because you're going to save your back a lot more if your glutes and hamstrings are a lot stronger. We do no weightlifting, snatch or clean and jerk in the fitness group. We just don't think our athletes are ready for it just yet. And some of our athletes don't really want it, and that's okay too. I'm not going to try to put my CrossFit or what CrossFit deems or people deem as CrossFit on other people. If that's not something they're not comfortable with, we don't have to explore that. And also too, we're going to develop an aerobic base. So the aerobic base is basically the easiest energy system to tap into. It's the one I'm using right now, but you develop this base and it allows you to add layers of other kind of energy systems, but also it's good for recovery. This is what people look at as like breathing work and things like that. So that's a little synopsis of the fitness group. Hope I'm not keeping everybody bored with this stuff. I could talk about this for a real long time. So the performance group is a basic CrossFit protocol. This is where you start getting into more CrossFit-like movements. You need a 14 or more on your FMS with no zeros. Your kipping is, you could kip in this group if your strict is established and shown to the coach. Weightlifting, we do have in this program. I believe in weightlifting, learning it from the hip down versus the floor up. I know many athletes learn from taking the bar off the floor. So for us, we start our cycles off starting from just the hip and then progressing from the hip from above the knee and learning it that way. A lot of times the more room you give somebody to make an error in just about anything, they are going to. So we start with the smaller positions and build down from there. Last but not least, we have a competition group. We've had some success with regional athletes. This is more of an individualized programming. This is something I head up here at OCF, where they do their work, and it's mostly remote. They could do it here, but they don't need to have hands-on coaching per se. Only one day a week we all meet together and we work. So putting it all together. So I know this sounds like a lot going on, but we really do a good job, or at least I have an opinion on it, that we do a really good job of keeping everybody together in classes with the fitness and performance, because all our classes are open to all our athletes, fitness or performance. Our evening classes, all of them have have 2 coaches on the schedule, a lead coach and assistant coach, so they really helps us balance that out, which I think we're extremely fortunate to have as far as the staff. But just a sample look of a class would look something like this. Part A, usually the groups do the same. It's some sort of mobility, activation, motor control work that's setting you up for kind of the theme of the day for the workout. So today class is doing, the fitness group is doing deadlifts and half kneeling presses, and the fitness group is doing clean and jerks. So it's kind of like, or power clean and jerk, should I say. So very similar movements, very similar movement patterns in my mind. So the part A is going to be based on activation, mobility, and also motor control. The next part, that's usually a little bit different. Like I said, the fitness group would go off to their end of the room and they would work on their deadlifts and half kneeling press. The performance group would be on one side so the coach could manage the room really well, and they would be doing their work like that. And then usually for classes, we usually bring the conditioning together as same as possible. So a few little intricate little changes, but usually the time domains, what the movements are, basic movement principles, lower body push, lower body pull, upper body push, upper body pull, are usually very similar. And we bring the classes together like that. So it's not a very segregated environment, but it's the best way that we found to give people a mixture of what they want and what they need, and what we do the best is keep people safe and give them results. That might have seemed a little long-winded. I hope I kept everybody to the end. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, angelo@o'harecrossfit.com. Thank you.